The purpose of this video is to demonstrate how I annotate a text and to help you annotate as well, so that first up at least you can just copy my annotations, but please look, if I miss anything, don't hesitate to add your own annotations in there if there are important things that I've missed. Now, the reason for doing this is that research shows us that the more note-taking students do, the more effective their learning is. However, this is stressed is that note-taking needs to be explicitly taught. So you need to be shown how to do it, and that's what I'm doing right now. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want you guys to learn effectively. So working smarter, not harder. The text that we're going to be looking at is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. And today I'm going to be annotating chapter 1. The first thing that I would like you to do is to check out my key. Okay, so we have 5 different things that we're looking for as we're going through. Characters, we've got structure and form, settings, we've got plot, action, and on the side we have language. And the reason why I put language on the side is that's generally what you're using to prove points when you're writing essays and doing assessments. So that's something that I easily want to be able to find. So the other ones are at the top, but language is on the side. Okay, so chapter 1, we start with the title of the chapter, The Invisible Museum. So this is a metaphor. You can see I've put the little yellow tab on the side to demonstrate that that's part of language. Now the reason for doing these all the way through is there's no point making all these wonderful notes if the information isn't then easy for you to find afterwards. So this is actually describing Noah's mind, this idea of this invisible museum. We're going to see all the time he's kind of creating art in his mind, and that's a way that Nelson communicates to us what's actually going on in Noah's mind. So the story is going to be a first-person narrative, and that is part of the structure of the writing as well. Now there will actually be 2 narrative voices, so sometimes it will be Noah and sometimes it will be his twin Jude. So this is Noah, age 13, and all of Noah's chapter are kind of in the same time period of around this age of 13. Jude's will then go into the future. This is how it all begins. So with all novels, pay attention to what we're getting in the first sentence. With Zephyr and Fry, raining neighbourhood sociopaths, torpedoing after me, and the whole forest floor shaking under my feet as I blast through airs, trees, this white-hot panic. Now, this is really colloquial language, so we can go into the tone there. We've got the metaphor of torpedoing, so that's the verb that we've got there is a metaphor. It's not actually a sentence. So, look, it's very informal. It's trying to capture this language, this mind of a teenager. And so we're getting that straight away in the first kind of sentence. And I've put this and highlighted it in blue as it's kind of, this is the plot, this is the action. We've got someone who is very vulnerable. And that's starting from the very first sentence, this vulnerability for Noah. I've highlighted "You're going over, you pussy," Fry shouts, and I've also put that in pink under. Okay, so we've got the gendered insult in there. And I've also put it in pink because this is communicating to us a fair bit about Fry, who is a minor character, but this idea of power and bullying, they're themes within the actual novel. Okay, I've also highlighted David and I've annotated. Note how I'm just annotating to the side. We've got an art illusion. Now, art really forms a character or a kind of non-existent character within. It's really important, this motif of art. So this is an allusion, spelt with an A, for David, who was created by Michelangelo, and Michelangelo was gay, which we learn about in the next page, I think, and that's very important in this terms of identity and sexuality. Okay, so page 10. Now look, you may have there are different editions of this. If the pages don't completely match up, just read through. It's going to be roughly in the right spot, so read through and find out where to go. I'd recommend highlighting Michelangelo. Again, we've got that motif. And then here's something that he was told by his dad: act tough and you are tough, as dad has said and said and said, like I'm some kind of broken umbrella. Now the broken umbrella is symbolism. Okay, now we have this theme of identity, the idea of a broken umbrella which just isn't fit for purpose. It's one that kind of recurs. It also communicates the relationship between Noah and his father, which is a strained relationship. And look, this idea of masculinity and what actually it means to be masculine is really important in their relationship. I've also highlighted he calls everyone gay when he's not calling them homo and pussy. So again, we've got this theme of identity, and we've got this real vulnerability for Noah. Okay, I've highlighted some I've annotated to the side sensory imagery. The heat of him is seeping through my t-shirt. His coconut suntan lotion's filling my nose, my whole head. The strong smell of the ocean too, like he's carrying it on his back. So we've got a little simile there. So we're getting all the sensations, the feelings, and also the smell. Now, here we have, so as Noah writes, he's going to have this motif of his mind painting, and he titles all of these kind of mind paintings, and this occurs throughout the novel. Now, this is really important in terms of it explains exactly what's going on in Noah's head. Noah's an artist, and he's seeing the world in terms of all these particular pictures and his experiences and his feelings. Okay, now this character of Fry, he rips one of Jude and me down the middle. Now we have this division between the twins, so this is foreshadowing another event that actually happens later in the story when Jude divides the sculpture of her and Noah down the middle. There is this kind of division, which is an important kind of idea in terms of the identity of the two twins. I'd also recommend highlighting information about Jude. She can surf harder than any of them, likes to jump off cliffs, and isn't afraid of anything, not even great white sharks or dad. And this also is starting to drop more clues about the relationship with the father, who Noah's kind of suggesting he's someone to be feared. Okay, now again, relationship, she's always rescuing me. We've got another self-portrait. I think this one's quite powerful. This idea of the twins, of Noah looking in a mirror and Jude out of it. This is this connection between the two twins, which is really strong. We've got setting, Devil's Drop, the second highest jump on the hill, which they plan to throw me over, has the name for a reason. Beneath it is a jagged gang of rocks and a wicked whirlpool that pulls your dead bones down to the underworld. Okay, we have, now you'll notice as you're reading through, there's a lot of hyperbole with what he's saying. He was talking about Jude's hair before being miles long. He's talking about all 6,000 hippopotamus pounds of fry. I think in the opening where Nelson talks about Noah, she talks to him about as a flood in a paper cup. And I think this hyperbole is maybe part of that kind of idea of a flood in a paper cup. he says, I hate the water, prone as I am to drowning and drifting to Asia. I need my skull in one piece. Crushing it would be like taking a wrecking ball to some secret museum. So again, that kind of link to what his chapters are called, the Invisible Museum, before anyone ever got to see what inside. Now, this becomes an important plot point because when we move into the future, and it's a non-cyclical, it's a non-linear structure that Nelson employs, we're going to go and see Jude's perspective, but around the age of 16. And at this stage, we're going to have Noah choosing to jump. So there's this real transformation that occurs between Noah at 13 and Noah at 16. But we'll explore that more later. So again, we've got more hyperbole. He's talking about his dad. He'd still pin me down because he's 30 feet tall and made of truck parts. Zephyr's head pressed into my chest and fries behind me with what feels like 100 hands, and it's just motion and confusion, and I'm lost in it, lost. When I begin to suspect, when I realise I have a hard-on, a supernaturally hard-on, and it's jammed into Zephyr's stomach. High-octane dread courses through me. Now there's this real fear, and again we're talking about vulnerability. A huge part of Noah's vulnerability is the fact that he's gay. And in the first couple of pages there's certainly plenty of hints, but here we have evidence supporting this idea that he's gay, and he's terrified about this. The relationship with his dad is very kind of heteronormative, and he's very, very scared about what will happen if he is outed. This kind of communicated in this metaphor, a sickly ferret feeling is burrowing itself into every corner of my body. I might as well swallow a lit stick of dynamite and hurl myself off Devil's Drop. Better to be dead than to be gay. So this really sad pressure on him that he is so concerned about something that is so integral to who he is as a person. And that we have another, I don't know, interesting that this page is now in black. It's mirroring the actual image, or the images that Noah was drawing, a series of boxes inside of darkness. Now, in terms of genre, this fits in, and genre generally fits across a number of different genres. One of the genres that this one fits into is this kind of idea of a Bildungsroman. A Bildungsroman is a coming-of-age novel. So we have this kind of transition between childhood and heading towards adulthood, this kind of pivotal adolescent age between 13 and 16. We have the dead grandma, and this is kind of a theme of supernatural and ghosts, and particularly important when Jude is the first person narrator. Now, we get this real sense of the relationship. We've had the relationship with Dad, the relationship with Noah's relationship with his mum is he is so in love with her. We get this straight away. I'm being a mum mirror. Mum's contagious. We compare that to how he's communicating about his dad, the metaphor that he's using there. He's an artichoke. I feel the curdling because what would happen if he knew? So the curdling is that sensation, that feeling, so that kind of sensory imagery. And he's talking about what would he know, what would happen if his father knew that he was gay. We have yet another self-portrait. We have the interesting syntax here. Jude does too, and now syntax is the order that words are put into. She and me, we share a laugh switch. Okay, so again, this isn't a conventional sentence. Okay, so the author is, again, deliberately trying to construct that kind of thinking pattern of an adolescent, trying to really get inside the mind of an adolescent as she's writing. So Everything isn't written in perfect sentences. And this is also communicating, again, this idea of this relationship, she and me. That's the bit that's kind of out of order. And again, it's communicating this idea of this closeness in the relationship between the two twins. I'd highlight the family portrait. Dad interrupts, throwing a whole load of boring on the moment. Again, we've got that tone of the teenage narrator. Dad used to make Mum's eyes shine, now he makes her grind her teeth. Okay, now we've got this declarative statement. And one of the really important themes in the novel is this idea of how complex family relationships actually are. Here we've got a little bit of gender and masculinity. We're talking about the father, big banging voice coming after me to watch football or some movie where everyone gets blown up, or to listen to jazz. Makes me feel like my body's on backwards. So again, this idea of identity and not feeling like he belongs at all, not feeling like, again, it's this idea of the broken umbrella. He doesn't fit into that kind of traditional idea of what it means to be masculine. Now this is, again, communicating this relationship with the father, parthenogenesis, conception without a father, the fact that he keyed his dad's car, I'd highlight that. Now he's, again, this kind of very artistic sensitivity. He sees souls. Mum has a massive sunflower, a flower for a soul. Jude and me have one soul between us that we have to share, a tree with its leaves on fire. I just wrote a little question here. What does this symbolise? I'm not sure what the tree with its leaves on fire means. He talks later in the chapter about when people fall in love, they burst into flames. Is this to do with love? And again, communicating the relationship with the dad. Dad has a plate of maggots for his. Mum's, dad's thoughts are turning the air black. So that metaphor, I think, again communicates this dysfunctional family relationship. We're also, obviously, the setting has moved from Devil's Drop into the family home. Another self-portrait. You two can have a drawing, or you two can have drawing contests. I'd highlight that. I think this is a real inciting incident. The twins clearly love each other, but this does create division between them. They're also very, very jealous of each other, and that they are competing for their parents' love. Jude baths bright blue fluorescent bath. Again, we've got this real tone. Look at the choice of the word, the diction, choice of the word bath. I haven't actually annotated that down, but I will. Again, characterization. No one would ever want to bash Jude's face in. She's shiny and funny and normal, not a revolutionary, and talks to everybody. And so this is in contrast to Noah, who, most of the time, I feel like a hostage identity. Now, we've got this parrot who is always saying, "Where the hell is Ralph?" Now, this is a motif. I think what this is kind of talking about and getting the reader to kind of think about is that the different characters don't talk to each other. They don't know where each other actually are in their lives. There's this real disconnection between them. And so this is kind of communicated through this motif of this parrot who just continually says the same thing. So here's the quote that I was talking about before: when people fall in love, they burst into flames. So we've got this theme of love. I really like this self-portrait that he does, the boy hiding inside the boy hiding inside the boy. I think that's, again, speaks to this kind of theme of identity and being scared of who you are, and hence the hiding. It's loud, like the house might break in two. Again, this kind of motif of the division, of splitting in two. I've highlighted that in green as well because that's where the setting is at the moment, in this in this family home that is highly dysfunctional. Mum and dad with screeching tea kettles for heads. That speaks to that dysfunction functionality in the relationship between the parents. Here we go to the twins. She scoots over, so we're shoulder to shoulder. This is us, our pose, the smush. So again, using non-sentences like our pose, the smush. So we've got that really interesting syntax in there. Now, this communicates the closeness of the twins. And again, we were together, we came here together. They've got the motif of the rock, paper, scissors. They always do the same. Now, Noah draws them often as half people. And again, this idea of the division, okay, where they're not a full person, they're only halves. So the calm of the smush floods me. This is his need for his twin. We exhale together, then inhale together, exhale, inhale, in and out, out and in. So quite interesting sentence structure there, where again this idea of two things working together is actually communicated within the language itself, where it says in and out, out and in. Well, this is like those two halves being put together to make the whole. One complete and whole person. So this is, again, we're having a contest. Mum's the judge. Very important part for the plot and for the action. We've got self-portrait. Boy gets fed by piece to a swarm of fire ants. Now, again, we're getting a little more of the theme of Noah's sexuality, of his homosexuality. Okay, he's receiving all these feelings because he's looking at a guy who's like winked at him. We have the metaphor, a bath, bright green bath. So again, that really colloquial tone and use of language and use of diction. We've got the metaphor for jealousy there, which again is communicated. I swallowed and looked down and burst into flames. Now, we have this line here, if mum died, the sun would go out, period. Look, that's foreshadowing the mum does die, which is the climactic moment in the story. And we have extreme transformation between both Noah and Jude, okay, which from that moment, from that period, when their mother dies. And we also have the motif of the sun. Okay, this idea that the sun is a metaphor, that everything revolves, our world revolves around the sun. And I think there's a real link between the sun and the mother. If you think back earlier when Noah was talking about his mother's soul, she was a sunflower. Okay, so I think he's constantly saying, well, there is this metaphorical idea that the mother is this individual in their lives, and their lives revolve around her. She's a central part of their world. We've got some sensory images with the sound there. Again, we've got this idea of him getting into this art school, okay, which again is a very important part of the story. We've got another portrait, this time of Jude. Again, this idea of jealousy. So remember with the first chapter, the first part of a story, it's about exposition. It's about introducing the characters. It's about communicating some idea of backstory, such as like the parents' kind of dysfunction, of Jude kind of saving Noah all the time. It's about introducing the setting. So we have the setting of Devil's Drop and this feeling of danger. We also have the setting of the dysfunctional family home. Okay. When I draw Jude and me with I'd recommend highlighting this with see-through skin. There are always rattlesnakes in our bellies. So we have this metaphor of the rattlesnakes communicating the feeling of jealousy. There is also a motif of drowning throughout the novel. Now, the twins play the drowning game where they're deciding if they were both drowning, who would their parents actually swim to and save. So again, there's this real competition between the twins all the time. Okay, so lots for you to kind of highlight and note. Now, I'm going to do the same thing for chapter 2. I'd like to also introduce you to word, phrase, sentence. Okay, so in this, you need to identify a word that captured your attention or struck you as powerful. Now, I want you to actually write word, phrase, sentence as a heading in your book, and also write all of this down. So you need to identify a word that captured your attention or struck you as powerful. Now, the word smush struck me as powerful as it communicates the twins' closeness and symbiotic need for each other. Now, if you disagree with me, you're very welcome to find your own word, but for the purposes of today's video, all you need to do is actually write my one down. However, you're very welcome to find your own. Identify a phrase that moved, engaged, or provoked you. The phrase rattlesnakes in our bellies engaged me as it is a really evocative description of the feeling of jealousy, particularly between siblings. Identify a sentence that was meaningful to you that you feel captures a core idea of the text. The sentence, if mum died, the sun would go out, foreshadows the death of Noah and Jude's mother, which is the story's climax, resulting in each twin's transformation. Look, if I was writing that again, I might write more about this idea that the twins' mother actually is metaphorically the sun, that she is this point in their lives, this individual in their lives that they all kind of revolve around, seeking her love. And look, that's it. Thank you for watching. I will also put out another video on chapter 2. So you'll need to be watching that for homework tomorrow night. Thank you.